Your people condemn mine to death. No, then do it again, and again, and again, and again, until I finally got this. Your people condemn mine to death. That was the best I could do. I had to direct myself. Almost sounds like she's constantly needing to clear her throat.
Don't I scare you in the least? Please. I'm starving.
I'm starving. What is that? I kind of made it sound more desperate. I'm starving.
Feed me.
Oh God, that's a bad one.
Feed me.
So here's what I did.
Feed me.
I'm going for a little more demonic, a little less banshee. I know how she does it. You inhale air. If I exhale while doing that, you get this. I just thought that sounded more intimidating rather than wanted to do a little more angry. Hi bunholes. What this video is about is explaining the stuff that I've been working on with the Nitara mod, showing you how much of a pain in the ass it's been, but the hard part's over. I recently just finished doing every single interaction line, every single taunt. I cannot believe how many there are. Holy shit. And I'll also explain why it was so difficult, but now all that's left is combat sounds, demon, vampire sounds, and announcer. So we're still working on that, and in due time, it's gonna be ready, and once it's ready and we get recordings, it's all gonna be shown on my YouTube channel. I think we're gonna make a really badass trailer. It was worth it though. This has been so fun, but I have been working on this for weeks. I only have a couple hours to do stuff when I get off work, make dinner and all that stuff, and as soon as I'm done with everything I can get done, I hop on the computer and just record as much as I can and edit as much as I can and just save it and keep going and going until it's done. And I'm not getting paid for it, but it's still a lot of fun. It's a passion project, but at the same time, I've been recording a couple other projects and auditions for a couple people that requested some things. Anyway, it has been a blast despite how much of a bitch it's been. And the other thing to keep in mind is there are things that I wish I could change. They're basically, as much as I love the voice that I chose for Nitara, if I could have changed it to have an accent a little deeper, you're gonna hear me repeat that because I'm actually recording this after I've recorded the other stuff. So if I repeat myself, bear with me. The voice that I aimed for Nitara, I wish I could have done an accent or something, but it wouldn't have matched her mouth movement. And there's more details on that later. Another thing is, if I could have done even a little bit deeper voice, I would have, but again, when you do a really, really deep voice for a mouth movement and a character that looks kind of youthful, because Nitara is modeled after Megan Fox. So, and she's gorgeous. I really like Nitara's look. I don't like her default look, however. I think everybody agrees, what is up with that pointy hair, that pointy head? It's like a mullet in the back. I think they were going for a punk rocker kind of look. There's an outfit where she actually does have like a punk rocker outfit with spiky hair. That looks sick. But I think everybody agrees they prefer her with long hair, with either that cool Valkyrie helmet thing or that gorgeous default from the previous game she was in. But yeah, that's my favorite look for her. That's pretty much everybody's favorite look. There's some mods that make her look pretty awesome. But yeah, long hair is preferable. Nobody likes that weird pointy dickhead look that they gave her. Anyway, so we're working on it and hopefully be done in the next month or so. So anyway, I will show the clips of what I wanted to demonstrate to explain what I've been doing for the past couple of months. Okay, so this is the software that I use. It's Vegas Pro 17, which is really outdated, but it's all I've got. I do have Audacity, which is a free software that is excellent, but I'm just not that good. I'm just more knowledgeable with this, so I prefer to record in Vegas, and I clean up the audio with Audacity. Anyway, so to explain how difficult this was, in a nutshell, there is hundreds of lines that Nitara does. And Megan Fox, there actually is a few lines that aren't that bad. She actually puts a little effort into them, but not all the time. And the problem, there's several problems. One of them is the lines are stupid. Most of the lines that she says are really corny. It's Mortal Kombat. A lot of the things they say are dramatic, theatrical, but I don't know why Nitara seems to get some of the worst lines in the game, like,
"You will scream, demon."
that's just so bad. I don't think anybody could make that sound good, not even myself. In my video with the fan dub, I at first kind of did it like leaning in, like, "You will scream, demon. You will scream, demon." But I changed it to where in the game, in the mod, I'm gonna make it, I re-recorded it. "You will scream, demon." Like a demon enunciating the D in demon, like, "I'm gonna fucking kill you, demon," you know? And that's her interaction with Ashura. She has a big beef with Ashura. Anyway, so this timeline right here, this top, this took weeks, okay, guys? And this isn't even the final project. This is just the raw recording project. This timeline is all of Nitara's lines done by Megan, isolated one by one, right? And the problem is that the cadence that Megan speaks in a lot of these lines is very fast, or she enunciates words that just don't sound right, and it's not entirely her fault. I just don't think she was directed properly. I think what happened was they just put the mic in front of her face and gave her the script and just said, "Go."
You Outworlders believe yourselves so superior.
And nobody really coached her into how to voice act, because there's a difference between acting in front of a camera and a stage and acting in front of a microphone. But the point is that when you voice act, you do have to emote and change your facial expressions, because people can tell when you're smiling, gritting your teeth, and you're mad. And when I did these lines, I actually did change my facial expressions. I did some gestures, even though I didn't want to do it too intense because the mic would pick it up. Anyway, case in point, matching her mouth movement, matching her cadence to each of these lines was a nightmare, because a lot of times it just wouldn't sound right, and I have to do it over again and again and again until I finally got it to match and to where the line sounded decent. Not great, but decent. Some sounded great, in my opinion. But here's one of the first lines that was in this raw recording that I found on YouTube where somebody isolated all the speaking lines. This is the first, what they call interactions or intros. It's when the characters slam into each other right before they fight and talk shit.
"Together we can bleed the realms."
That's not bad, because she's at least enunciating the word bleed the realms. I had to match, see the sound bars, how they have to match. I didn't match exactly because I want to have a little bit of creative freedom with how I say the line, but I still had to make it match, because if I didn't, it's not gonna match Nitara's mouth movement.
Together we can bleed the realms.
That's them together, this is it by itself.
Together we can bleed the realms.
That took a lot of effort. And if you hear white noise, this is the raw recording. I cleaned up the noise for every single clip.
𝘽𝙚𝙝𝙗𝙗𝙗 Earthrealmer.
Yeah, she also has this weird thing with her voice where her voice cracks. And it's like, almost sounds like she's constantly needing to clear her throat.
"I'm here to feed, Earthrealmer. This means war, General. Don't I scare you in the least? Least.
I'll bleed your confidence dry.
I'll bleed your confidence dry."
Here's one that's pretty bad. So there's what's called taunts, or at least that's how I've been categorizing them. It's when they say something in the middle of a fight, before or after a fight. Like after they get knocked on their ass and they stand back up and they'll say something. I've never heard this in the game. Maybe it's not in the game. It might be like one of those many raw recordings, but I recorded all of them. Anyway, listen to this delivery of this line.
"I'm starving.
I'm starving. It's just like, what is that? I'm sorry. Man.
I'm starving."
Anyway, this is what I did. I kind of made it sound more desperate. I'm starving. Believe it or not only did I have to record every single line and match Megan's mouth movement and cadence after that was all complete, after I cleaned up the audio, I had to organize and isolate every single one of them, and I had to look up who she was talking to. I had a lot of them memorized, but I didn't have a prayer of knowing all of them. I had to go to a website and do Control F and type the line. Then once I found out who she was talking to, then I put those files where she talks to Baraka and Raiden and so on and so on and so on. And there is a lot. Holy shit, way more than I thought. So these are all interactions, these are all taunts. I put taunts in caps because what he has to do after he goes through all the sound files, which are all numbered, it's just like random numbers and code. He has to like listen to one of these.
Well, no wonder you despise us, Baraka.
And then he's got to find the line of where she says that, which is going to be numbers, and then I guess he has to take this wave file and put it in its spot, replacing it and then renaming it with the code in order to basically copy paste that line so it'll replace it. That's basically what we're doing, and it was not easy for either of us. He's still working on it. I'm still finishing up recording as well. What's another good example? Let's see.
Ha! To you, I'm an expendable asset.
Ha! That's just so...
Ha! To you...
Ha! That's just... whatever. And here's what I did. Ha! To you, I'm an expendable asset. What sucks is I would have said it slower if I could. To you, I'm an expendable asset. You know what I mean? It's just so... having to bunch all those words together after the huh to match her speed it was a nightmare. Ha! To you, I'm an expendable asset. And I always would just extend it just a little bit because I wanted to at least say it just a little differently. I just hate the way she says most of these. They just don't sound very good.
Eaten alive.
There's that voice crack I was talking about. Listen to that alive.
Eaten alive.
It sounds like auto-tune. Eaten alive. It's weird.
Dry.
I guess she just has a very cracky voice. Instead of, I'll bleed your confidence dry.
I'll bleed your confidence dry.
Enunciating the bleed and the dry. The thing that I was aiming for Nitara was more of a matriarchal, a little bit lower pitch, and droop down the speed. If I could, I would do it more. It's just, she's supposed to be tens of thousands of years old, and she's like the queen of vampires, or arch elder, whatever, you know, she's a leader. And I thought it was imperative to make her sound wise, in a way, instead of, she sounds like a teenage girl with Megan. And it just doesn't sound fitting. And if I had my way, I would have added an accent. Maybe a slight Romanian accent, something. It would have been really cool if they'd gotten, well, first off, Christina V, who did the voice of all the Kombat Sounds. She should have done it in the first place. But it'd be cool if Nitara sounded more like Scarlet in Mortal Kombat 11. Scarlet had this sexy accent and had this really just alluring way of speaking.
I came to suck you dry.
And that's what I would imagine that Nitara would sound like.
The Arch Elder wants to sample 𝘚𝐻 blood.
That's not that bad either, but I wanted to enunciate blood, and unfortunately, I slowed it down a bit, and it may or may not match the mouth movement.
The Arch Elder wants to sample 𝘚𝐻 blood.
There is a sexual energy. She's a female vampire. What else could you expect? Everybody loves a sexy woman vampire. But, you know, I wanted her to be alluring but intimidating. And it's not easy to do that with these crummy lines, for one thing, and for another, she's kind of cocky. In the end, Nitara is not necessarily a bad guy, but she's not a good guy either. They would call her an anti-hero. I do consider her a bad guy. This interview that Megan Fox said, she's like,
She's evil, but she's also good.
no, honey, she's either one or the other. Because in the end, and it's kind of sad, Nitara doesn't really get that big of a part. In the game, she goes to Outworld to save her people because they're starving to death and she needs to find a way to feed them. Her solution, I guess, was to capture people, to breed them and take them to her world, and she ends up going back. Mortal Kombat 1, MK1, the story is so convoluted and fucking weird, I can't even explain it. But just think of multi-universes and timelines being all screwed up, whatever. In the end, she ends up going back home with nothing, and her people are pissed at her, and she's like, okay, I'll just kidnap a few thousand people, we'll breed them, and then we'll have unlimited amount of food. So it's like she went to Outworld for no reason. So she really got the short end of the stick. What a crummy story, and what a crummy way to treat a cool character. She was only in, I think, 2 other Mortal Kombat games back in the early 2000s. But anyway, I digress. Point is, I don't consider her a good guy because somebody, I think it was Garrus, who said there's other ways to feed your people.
There are other ways to feed 𝑽ternus.
None of them will sustain our immortality.
So it's like, oh yeah, we won't starve to death, but we want to live forever, you know? They're assholes. So they're gonna kidnap thousands of humans, lock them in cells, force them to have babies and make the babies grow up only to get all their blood sucked out. That's evil. I love vampires, but vampires are monsters in the end, and they eat people, so I don't consider her good like Megan does. But then again, she and her boyfriend sucked each other's blood.
Gross!
Hollywood weirdos. Anyway, let me see. What's another good line?
𝘽𝙗 has arrived.
Oy.
𝘽𝙗 has arrived.
There's that weird auto-tune sounding voice crack.
𝘽𝙗 has arrived. Arrived.
What is that? Arrived. And doing that line, man, that's a corny line. How did I do it?
𝘽𝙗 has arrived.
I didn't like doing these lines. It was not easy. I hated most of these. I cringe when I hear them, but the point is not to improve the writing as much as I wish I could just rewrite these terrible lines and do something else, but it wouldn't match her mouth movement. That was the problem. If I could have done my own facial motion capture and do my own lines, I could make Nitara so much cooler.
I will drink deep.
I will drink deep. Who wrote this shit? It's awful.
I will drink deep.
Feed me.
Oh god, that's a bad one.
Feed me.
Feed me!
Feed me.
Oh boy. So here's what I did.
Feed me.
I wanted to put a demonic distortion to these lines to just make them sound cooler for one, and for another, I consider vampires demonic in a way. She's got the bat wings, you know, and as much as I love Christina V's banshee screaming and the hissing, so she does this screech, which is like a banshee scream, and I know how she does it. You inhale air. You don't exhale, you inhale, and you strain your throat just a little bit, and it creates a distortion, almost like a bird. Here's how you do it. It's really weird. So you kind of go like that, but kind of strain it to where not a lot of air goes through. There you go, that was a good one. That's how she does her screeching, like. I have not done that in years. I am really out of practice. But anyway, here's how I do the demon effect, and it's just so much more fun, and I like how it sounds, so this is how I did it. First, I kind of do a demonic metalhead kind of roar, if that's what you call it. Now that I hear the recording, it kind of reminds me of that run sound that the female fighters have in Mortal Kombat 3. Yeah. God, I love how ferocious they sounded back then. Anyway, this is the trick. You get the normal recording, then a high-pitched one, then a low-pitched one, and then you mix them together. Then you get this demonic monstrosity. And you add a little reverb, and then you get this. I add them to the taunts because it enunciates certain things. I don't do the whole line with the taunt. I do parts of it. Example, she says this a lot in between fights.
Your death is written in blood.
That's how Megan does it.
Your death is written in blood.
And I put the written in blood with the demon sound because it just enunciates it and it makes it sound more menacing. Also, Christina V does the hissing, which is very common in vampire movies where they hiss, kind of like a predatory cat. I love that, but I went for something different. I wanted to do almost like a predator growly hiss, like how I do that is, you know, when you go kind of like a cat, or I don't know how to explain it, but it's like a little bit of saliva is in the back of your throat where it kind of causes a trilling sound like that. And if I don't vocalize, I can make a predator noise or the clicker. No idea how I taught myself to do that, but if I exhale while doing that, you get this. So I wanted to replace the growling, the hissing to I just thought that sounded more intimidating rather than Anyway, so I'm actually periodically gonna work on replacing, not that it's needed, it's gonna be optional because Christina V's recordings are f***ing awesome. But I'm going for, like I said, a little more primal, a little more demonic, a little less banshee. As much as I love her. She should have voiced Nitara for sure. But anyway, that's what I was aiming for. And I'm also gonna be doing the combat sounds. Her combat sounds are amazing. I just want them to match my speaking voice, so I'm gonna do it a little bit deeper, a little more primal growling while attacking. Hers are a little more along the lines of like, ha, yeah, you know what I mean? And there are quite a few that I did where it's like, yeah, yeah, But I wanted to do a little more just angry, kind of like like that, just a little more primal, I guess. Maybe I'm overusing that word, I don't know. I also forgot to point out a couple things. When I first uploaded the clip on the Mortal Kombat Reddit, and that got a lot of attention, mostly positive attention. There was a few, I'd say the most negative comments were in Reddit, but you know how Reddit is. Some of them pointed out some things that I know they have a point, but I don't think they realized something that they were kind of incorrect about. One of it was, oh, this sounds like a corny 1990s cartoon character, like a comic book cartoon character from Saturday morning cartoons. And I'm like, have you listened to the other characters in Mortal Kombat? They are so epic and theatrical, but they sound exactly the same. Like, they enunciate certain words. Who I was inspired by was more or less 𝘚𝙗𝙗. She has this way of talking that's just very regal, and she has a very deep voice, and she's very dramatic.
Thanks to you, Earthrealm blood is already on my hands, without cause or provocation. I remember the weak, sickly boy you were. Now you repay him by spitting on his ideals?
With your kind, there's no alternative.
With your kind, there's no alternative.
Just being in your presence soils me.
Just being in your presence soils me.
That's 𝘚𝙗𝙗, and that sounds almost cartoonish. Mortal Kombat has always been dramatic, theatrical, and often campy, but overall fun. It's not necessarily a serious game, and it's always been campy. And plus, I had to direct myself. If somebody had directed me and told me, no, do that line over, I would have, but I had to do this all by myself. So I would listen to a recording, I'm like, no, that sounded lame. I do another recording, I'm like, no, that was lame, don't, bleh. Or my voice would crack, or I'd burp, you know, just, and I should demonstrate what it was like. I think I'll do that. I'll demonstrate what recording was. So let's pretend for a minute that this is me getting ready to record a line. A dramatic line.
Your people condemn mine to death.
I did manage to get a good recording of that, right? You wouldn't believe how many takes I'd have to do while watching the sound bars, and I would turn down Megan's track so that I would listen to it repeatedly.
Your people condemn mine to death. Your people condemn mine to death.
And having to match that, your people condemn mine to death. Like, match the rhythm, right? And make these corny lines actually sound good. So here's a demonstration. When I f**k up, your people condemn mine to death. That's not a good example, but I'm exaggerating. And I would do that in the moment. I'm like, no, delete. And I do it again. Your people condemn mine to death. Nope, no good. Your people condemn mine to death. No. And do it again, and again, and again, and again, and again, until I finally got this. Your people condemn mine to death. That was the best I could do. And that's the one I kept. So imagine I don't know how many there are, at least 150 or more. At least. I haven't counted. Instead of the, don't I scare you in the least?
Don't I scare you in the least?
Whatever the fuck that was, it changed to,
Don't I scare you in the least?
a little more of a rhetorical, sarcastic question instead of whatever the hell that.
Don't I scare you in the least?
I don't know why she cracked her voice there.
Don't I scare?
We should play around with that. Hold on. Don't I scare you in the least? And stretch that. Don't I scare you in the least? The least. Scare you in the least. Oh, editing is so fun.